U.S. Supreme Court has weighed in on one of the cases about former President Donald Trump. So let's go straight to CNN's Paula Reed. Paula, what is the news from the U.S. Supreme Court? What did they decide on the immunity case?
Hasan, I'm a progressive. I just think that we should build a 9,000-foot high barbed wire top wall between the U.S. and Mexico armed with lasers. And we need to do immigrant processing detention facilities for overflow, that is. Man, it kind of sucks that you just throw liberal and progressive around like insults when people's rhetoric on issues don't perfectly align. Sometimes it's hard to express their stance. It doesn't mean they align with the worst Republicans. Sometimes they just want to understand. Brother, I'm sorry, but if someone goes, I'm a liberal, but I'm also further right than Ronald Reagan is on immigration, then that word is nothing. It's meaningless. My point is, you are not actually a progressive. I also don't use progressive as a fucking pejorative anyway. Roe v. Wade was a mistake. It was never mentioned in the Constitution. If people want abortion rights, a vote to legalize will work. Anyway.
This is a massive development, Jake. The Supreme Court has agreed to take up the issue of whether former President Trump has immunity from the federal election subversion case that he is facing. Now, a unanimous appeals court several weeks ago issued a scathing opinion, a unanimous opinion saying that he did not have immunity that would shield him from the federal election subversion case brought by special counsel Jack Smith. So he asked the Supreme Court to pause that lower court decision with the possibility that they would take up this issue. And now we have learned that the Supreme Court will take up this issue. This means that they will hear arguments. Now, it was just a few weeks ago, of course, that the Supreme Court took up another appeal from former President Trump, that one having to do with whether he could appear on state ballots, whether states had the authority to remove him from their ballots. Now, that argument, Jake, of course, you remember, it went pretty well for former President Trump. He is expected to prevail. But on this question of whether former President Trump has immunity that would shield him from the January 6th case brought by the special counsel, many legal experts and even sources I've spoken with in and around former President Trump's legal team do not expect that he would prevail on the merits of this. But now the Supreme Court has agreed to take up this case. Now, the immediate impact, before we even know what they decide, is that this will likely further delay that trial. And we know that.
Dude, my favorite is so many people are doing 16-hour shifts on Twitter, or not on Twitter, on Twitch, like this guy. Okay. I feel like we've gotten thousands of people who go through their 16-hour shifts only to come in here and blow off a little bit of steam. You know what I mean? Just finished a 16-hour shift, but it could be worse. So lucky I don't have to be a streamer. Yeah. Thanks, man. Another oil rig worker coming home after a 16-hour shift. You are the voice of the oil workers? Yeah. I want to know what shift he took on for 16 hours. I would love to hear more about your background. Let's just not have a president for the next 4 years, see what happens. Mhm. Bro yearns for the mines. He's like, dude, I think this is definitely, isn't it kind of shitty of you to pull chatters up like that? No, it's not. Stop feeding the troll, senpai. I do like hearing from the guy who hypothetically did a 16-hour shift only to log on to twitch.tv/HasanAbi to come in and be like, all right, you fucking asshole, you fucking piece of shit. You think your job is harder than mine? A thing that I never said, you know? Now they're DMing people in the chat. That's nice. It just doesn't take the soul out of you like streaming does, though. 16 hours of deep sea welding. Yeah. You're rewarding them with attention so they keep doing it. I mean, dude, I love that I am able to. I wanted to show my support for my fellow blue collar workers. Solidarity, brother. Oh, dude, if you would love to show your support, explain to us what you do. We would love to be enlightened by a real blue collar worker. Because obviously the 24,000 people that are in here right now, they're not actual real blue collar workers. Because they watch me. But you watch me to hate on me, which is different, which means you are blue collar. Would love to hear more about your workplace and maybe even give you tips and tricks on how to unionize so that your 16-hour shifts are either shortened or you have a better compensation and benefits package, things of that nature. You know, things that I actually advocate for. Would you like to enlighten us? There you go. You even got gifted a sub. It's funny because like all of these guys, they're all of the guys that come in here, they say they've been working at an oil rig for like 16 hours or whatever. And yet I have like actual fucking card carrying union rank and filers in here, whether it be IBEV, UAW, Teamsters. And they're the ones who are actually watching. So I'm always shocked. I would. Thanks for asking. Every morning I wake up at 4 a.m. after going to bed at 3 a.m. and eat a bowl of nails, then shower in motor oil. Oh, okay. Got it. Oh, so you're a NEET. Oh, I was just memeing, by the way. Went from 16-hour wage slave to NEET like that, dude. One question and you buckled. Yeah, we already knew you were a fucking NEET, dumbass. Dudes on a steady diet of Hot Pockets and Dino Nuggies coming in here to be like, dude, I worked for 16 hours at the labor factory. And not that you're a NEET who is desperate for attention and validation.
The Trump strategy has been to try to delay both federal cases until after the 2024 election, because if Trump is reelected, he could likely make both of those go away. So this is a very significant development, somewhat unexpected, that the Supreme Court has decided to take up Trump's immunity appeal.
All right, fascinating stuff, Paula Reed. Thank you so much. CNN senior Supreme Court analyst Joan Biskupik joins us now. And Joan, explain the significance of the move, because I think I've heard some court watchers say they thought that it was possible that the court was just going to defer to the appeals court.
Union workers aren't blue collar. You're only blue collar if you're a 0-hour independent contractor. No, the funny thing is, like, in the fantasies of Americans, they think, like, for example, if you work at Starbucks, you're not a real labor. You're not a real part of the working class. If you're a fucking graduate student, you're not a part of the real working class. And those guys are dumb as fuck. The people that say shit like that, okay? They're stupid. They don't understand what fucking labor is. They're just, and the way that you can, here, I'll give you an example of this. The Red Scare podcast, okay, created by two of the dumbest motherfuckers you ever met, right? One thing that they always LARPed about was how they understand what the real white working class actually looks like, not recognizing that the American working class is, of course, unimaginably diverse because America is diverse, right? It's pure fantasy. Nothing tells me that you don't know what the fuck you're talking about as it pertains to labor when you think that the only real workers are actually the white guys at the coal mine, okay? There's 50,000 of them. There are hundreds of thousands of delivery drivers, baristas, people that work in the service sector. You are just creating an aesthetic of what you think is the fucking real working class in this country. Nurses, teachers, that's the working class. And that working class is not united on being fucking racist or whatever the fuck people think. They're delusional. I'm working on getting Hunter Schafer on the broadcast, by the way. I found 1 degree of separation fairly quickly.
Court ruling that Trump is not immune, but that's not.
Why are you making shit up about Red Scare? I'm making shit up about Red Scare? The fuck? We got a fucking Red Scare loyalist in the year of our fucking holy Lord? Jesus, Lord, mercy. Right at the top of the fucking hour, too. Jesus Christ, dude. How can you call streaming a job, by the way? Tell you what does the work, Hasan? What? I don't even know what you're saying. Okay, what did they say that? I had no idea. I don't listen. Why are you defending the Red Scare podcast if you don't even fucking listen? $34 MKD50. Thank you for allowing 50 people to no longer see the ads at the top of the hour. I really used to enjoy the streaming content, but more clips that surface showing who you really are is sick. Following since 12 minutes ago. Oh, Jesus Christ, dude. It's sickening. Imagine crying so hard, reacting to a video that Lowery removes you from YouTube. Living in a glass mansion in Pebbles, keeping you awake at night. Must be more draining than anything. We shouldn't ban this one. We'll keep this one as a pet. I like this one. He's done 13 hours in the coal mines.
Not what they're doing. They're going to weigh in. Explain.
Absolutely not, Jake. And I think the reason some people were suspecting that, some people thought that in the beginning, but I always thought there would be a 50-50 chance. But as the days wore on, we thought, why haven't they, if they're going to hear it, why don't they tell us they want to hear it and begin the process? And as they delayed for these last 2 weeks, it seemed like, well, maybe they're going to summarily affirm what the D.C. Circuit had done, a very sound opinion rejecting the immunity claim, or maybe they were going to deny it, and that some of the justices were writing dissents from that denial. But what they've done is actually not too surprising. It's just the timing of it that's surprising. I thought that these justices might think that they need to have the last word on a question of such consequence, of the power of, in this case, a former president rather than a president. But what they've done now, Jake, just to cut through everything that's procedural here, is they have effectively ensured that we will not have a verdict on President Trump's election subversion allegations before summer, because they're not even going to hear this case until the week of April 22nd. And this is a complicated issue. It will probably take them a couple weeks to get the opinion out. I mean, at best, likely it would come, by the end of June when they typically recess for the session. But then we're already in summer. We're right
Chad,
upon
I already
the
ran the ad
Republican
break. Stop fucking
convention
baiting.
time. And I just do not see now any kind of chance of a trial as had originally been scheduled for first week in March, Jake. What I think could have happened, just to try to explain this timing, is possibly there had been an effort behind the scenes to try to do something that would have left in place the D.C. Circuit opinion, and to see if the Chief Justice John Roberts might have tried to get some sort of majority around that. But the fact that they delayed even this order that basically just says we're going to take it up, that they delayed it for 2 weeks, suggests that they certainly did not embrace the urgency that Special Counsel Jack Smith tried to impose upon them way back in December, when Jack Smith went to the Supreme Court and said, Justices, please take up this case now so that we can get a clear answer. This is yours to answer. And then, once the D.C. Circuit, once the Supreme Court said, no, we're not coming in, and the D.C. Circuit ruled, that was another several weeks. So former President Trump's effort to run the clock has a partner in the Supreme Court at this point, even though, Jake, probably in the end, the justices will agree with the D.C. Circuit and reject former President Donald Trump's claim of absolute immunity. But what good will that do for any kind of trial before we're really into the heat of this next presidential election?
So just to recap, Joan, the U.S. Supreme Court is not going to just defer to the appeals court. They are going to hear the argument about whether or not Donald Trump has immunity, can say that what he did as president is he's immune from prosecution because he was president at the time. Do we have any sort of timeline? So the court's going to take up the case. When are there going to be arguments?
Right. So they've set a time schedule for briefs to come in, written filings from the two sides, from Special Counsel Jack Smith, who is representing the United States government here, trying to bring this case against Donald Trump for what happened at the end of the 2020 election cycle before the 2024 election cycle. So there'll be filings from Jack Smith. There'll be filings from former President Donald Trump. I'm sure we'll have a cast of amicus briefs coming in trying to argue on both sides. And then the week of April 22nd, which is toward the end of their current...
No, Project 2025 is not DNC fear-mongering shit. It is real.
Oral argument sitting for this annual session. They will actually hold our oral arguments. All of our viewers will be able to hear those oral arguments when they're held. But I'm telling you, Jake, it's going to take several weeks after that to get a ruling, just because the nature of this case, now that they've decided themselves to take it up.
Okay, so the April 22nd is the week of oral arguments, and
Correct.
until then there will be all sorts of arguments that they submit, amicus brief, et cetera. When do you think there will be any sort of decision potentially from the U.S. Supreme Court after April 22nd?
If I were betting, just within minutes of having received this order, I would say the last week in June. I'd say the last week in June. I mean, it could come sooner. It could come sooner only because, it would be great if it did come sooner because so many folks on both sides would like an answer to this. But the fact that they have delayed even taking up the case from the moment when they could have. They were asked to take it up back in December. They were asked to take it up with some sort of urgency even earlier this month, and they didn't. They waited a couple weeks to even say they were going to come in. And so, as I say, I don't think they feel the sense of urgency that the Department of Justice and Jack Smith have articulated here. So I'm thinking end of June only, Jake, because that's when their session typically ends for this, when most of their cases are resolved by the end of June. But then, look where we are, end of June. And if let's just go back to the trial judge who had wanted to actually hold a trial, she would have to engage in, jury selection and then get that started. And, that process takes several weeks. And we're right into the thick of the presidential election. So who knows what will happen at that point. But I think the bottom line here is that the justice's action today really ensures that we will not have a verdict on whether former President Donald Trump is guilty or even a judge not guilty of the election subversion claims that and there are 4 counts of election subversion. There's conspiracy and obstruction, everything that kind of culminated with the January 6th attack at the U.S. Capitol. We will not have an answer to that anytime soon. That's what this ensures, Jake.
And just to reiterate, so 9 justices are going to hear this.
Did you just say, does Hasan support Israel or Palestine? He's been awfully quiet on the subject matter. What is going on, dude? That's gotta be a joke. Okay, what the fuck? Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay, thank you, chatter. You made me laugh.